data centers are being built across the country, across the world, and now across Wisconsin. And there's been concerns raised from different individuals, and we want to make sure that if we are going to be building data centers here in Wisconsin, that they are being done in a responsible way. Now, ultimately, obviously, whether a data center is constructed is going to fall to the local governments to decide if they want to allow that to be built in their municipality. I know there has been discussions even about building some in my district. I've heard about possibly building one in Greenleaf. I heard there's talk about building one in northern Manitowoc County. So this is something that has become very important to the people of northeastern Wisconsin. And so we have been working diligently, the Republicans in the Assembly and the Senate have been working diligently to put together a plan that says if these are going to be built, we have protections in place to make sure that these are being done responsibly and they are going to be done for the benefit of the people of Wisconsin and not just some big company coming in. So there's a number of different parts of this bill that is going through the process and will be getting hearing, I believe, this week. And then we'll turn it over to some of the other people to talk about the specifics. But at the high level, we want to make sure that the electricity that is going to be used at these data centers will not impact the people of Wisconsin negatively. We want to make sure that our electricity is affordable. Secondly, we want to protect our land, our farmland, and we want to protect our water usage. We want to protect our water tables. And so these are just some of the items that are going to be part of this bill that we will be hearing this week to make sure that we protect the people of Wisconsin as we consider this issue. So with that, to go into a little bit more about the water usage, we will pass it over to Representative Franklin to talk about that.
Thank you, Representative Sortwell. Thank you to the media for being here today in Green Bay. Happy to be here with you all to discuss this. I'm also happy to talk specifically about the waterways because of my work with the Knowles-Nelson project and just making sure that we are protecting our waterways. We have Oneida Nation in our backyard of the 88th Assembly District, as well as other stakeholders that have an interest in making sure that we're doing things to protect our waterways. So that being said, a couple highlights on what we're doing there in this legislation. We are encouraging responsible and sustainable water usage by requiring that data centers use closed-loop cooling systems, which recycles a fixed volume of water. This minimizes freshwater consumption and reduces the environment impact from cooling operations. Additionally, this legislation provides accountability and transparency by requiring that an annual report on water usage be sent by data center operators to the Department of Natural Resources. So we feel that by adding these provisions into this legislation, that it really bolsters our ability to make sure that we're utilizing our water in a responsible manner. We're not pulling copious amounts of water from Lake Michigan or draining Lake Michigan to keep these data centers online, but this is a responsible way to make sure that we're caring for our resources here in Wisconsin. And with that, I'll turn it over to Representative Benke.
Thank you, Representative. I was skeptical at first. Rural Wisconsin is kind of sacred. You want to have, God's creation protected and not have to look at something that you didn't grow up and weren't used to. But that's not the era we're in. This new technology and new infrastructure, I consider it like the roads. Like it is essential going forward as a state and as a country. We are going to need these data centers to, continue our economic flourishment. And I also think that a reason I enjoyed, seeing this bill is it protects farmland. So instead of, another solar project coming into my area, like the town of Morgan has one trying to be implemented, this would say, if you're going to get a data center, here's the acreage you got, and no solar, no wind can be built on top of it. So a 1,500 acre area can't be expanded to 3, 4, 5,000 acre area. So this would be eliminating the ability to power these data centers with renewables. So this kind of keeps it just to the traditional forms of power. And I also want to assure people that are nervous about a rate increase. I don't want a rate increase. None of us want a rate increase. We can't afford rate increases. So we're looking out for the ratepayers in Wisconsin to make sure that the data center and the people that are paying for it are absolutely the ones taking the responsibility to pay for the energy. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm David Steffen, State Representative, 4th Assembly District, and I'm also Chair of the Energy and Utilities Committee of the Assembly, which deals with many of the issues involved with these data centers. The world is entering a new era of innovation, information, infrastructure, and investment with these data centers. So one of the core questions are, how are we going to respond to this? And so with this bill, what we're trying to do is ensure that we are maximizing the upside while minimizing the downside. So by ensuring that ratepayers do not have to pay more as a result of these investments, by ensuring that we are protecting the environment, and ensuring that we have a system that works well for the entire state. We're trying to do that on the front end. And in that way, we're protecting ratepayers, we're protecting taxpayers, we're protecting our land. So those are the goals that are associated with this. We're hoping for bipartisan support, and we look forward to having these incredible next generation investments here in Wisconsin, but we need to make sure that we are protecting the people of Wisconsin. And that is our priority, and that's what this legislation does. So with that, we'll be available for questions as a group as well as individually.
Representative Banky, can you explain to me why you want to eliminate the ability for data centers to not be using renewable energy? Can you explain that to me?
So to be clear about what that bill does, it doesn't prohibit the use of renewable energy. It can be used. What it is saying is that it would have to be part of that site and part of the overall plan on the front end. We don't. What we are concerned about, and what Representative Banky was referencing, is sometimes, obviously, these are going to take a lot of power, and we don't want them to build that site and then all of a sudden to power it, you're going to be needing another 3,000 acres that nobody knew was going to happen, 10 miles off site, and all of a sudden you got another 3,000 acres that are out of farmland. So if it wanted to be part of the plan on the front end and part of the site itself, put on the rooftops, put on the structures itself, obviously those are pretty big structures in the footprint, they can do that. It just wouldn't expand beyond that.
Thank you. Sorry.
I'll just add something to that. Yeah, just so it's clear, is if a data center is going to be going up in the community of Oconomowoc, we don't want renewable energy from Oconto powering it. So it's got to be close on site in order to be a part of it. To be clear, the data centers that are going up now in Wisconsin are almost exclusively going to be powered by natural gas. There's been massive expansions of the natural gas production capability out of Milwaukee. That is where the majority of the data centers in that general southeast Wisconsin area are being built, and it's through expansions of natural gas capacity that we are providing that necessary power. To wrap that up, that's to better ensure more local control about approval. I mentioned before it falls to the locals whether they're going to allow these data centers to happen. So if that's what wants to be part of the plan, that the village of Greenleaf, for instance, wants to decide they're going to allow a data center and they're going to allow this as all part of the big plan, that's the agreement. Not Greenleaf decides to maybe allow a data center and then the people of Oconto who weren't involved in that discussion then have to deal with losing farmland to a solar field or whatever. So it should all be part of one big plan.
Sure. What are you hearing from some of your Democratic colleagues right now? You said that you're hoping for bipartisan support. What, I guess, are you hearing reaction-wise from them right now?
Well, I mean, we started, this is a fairly recent item, so we haven't had too many follow-up discussions yet, but I will tell you, some of the stuff that's actually in this bill is stuff we've already heard from them. For instance, requiring that water usage is reported to the DNR. That was something I know that Democrats had kind of put out there to make sure that we, in fact, know how much is being used now because of what we put into the bill, requiring, like Representative Franklin mentioned, related to closed-loop technology. We believe water usage will actually be relatively minimal, but I think the public deserves to know how much water is being used, and that was actually an idea we had heard from the Democratic side of the aisle, and so we were happy to put this into the proposal.
Yeah, I think we're hearing a lot of people questioning transparency of this stuff. Is this bill going to affect being more transparent with the people? I know talking to people in Greenleaf, they're really frustrated because they're not getting told anything, and so now there's a lot of confusion. So I don't know if this bill will touch on things being more transparent, especially with these massive potential data centers that are coming in and they say are going to destroy their town.
Well, I can't speak for everybody here, but I, of course, do support a lot of transparency for any large project that's coming, whether it's a new nuclear power plant, which I hope to see more of to power these data centers, or whether it's any other big company that may come in and use up a fair amount of land. That ultimately does fall to the local representatives, the local town boards, the local village boards, the local county boards. to make sure they're engaging the public, because it's the decision about allowing these things to be built is going to fall to those local people, because they're going to have to do rezoning and improvings and, you know, go through planning commissions and all these kinds of things. And so there's already some level of transparency built in there if something moves forward, if something is looking to move forward. But ultimately, the more the local representatives choose to do that, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think they should absolutely be as transparent as possible. I don't know if anyone else.
Yeah, I'd just like to piggyback a little bit on that too, is one of the things that we want to make sure that we foot stomp home is this bill is not advocating for or against the data centers.
Right.
We're just simply acknowledging that data centers are coming, and we want to make sure that it's done in a responsible way that really benefits our communities. So that being said, one provision that we haven't really talked about in this yet is local control for local communities. So they get to decide if a data center comes in or not. All that is at their level for decision making. If there is a situation where say, a company comes in, they're building a data center, and they end up pulling out halfway through their development, okay? Then the local community has the ability to decide what parts of that infrastructure they want to keep around versus just tearing it all down and starting over. So if that data center is building roadways, if they're building water resources, electric resources, substation, anything that has to do that municipality wants to keep and utilize for their local community, they have the local control to decide to do that.
Yeah, and as part of that, that was a great point, Ben, and about land protection. Another part of that bill requires actually that if they're going to be doing this, that they actually bond for turning the land back to as it originally was, whether they don't build it. And so they partially get through and then they don't build it. They would have to have a bond out there that they have purchased to make sure it could be returned to farmland. Or even if they do build it, if at some point they tear it down in the future in 50 years or whatever, once again, it could be returned to that when all is said and done. So that's another provision of the bill.
And I'm sorry, what's the name of the proposed bill?
I don't know if it has a catchy name yet.
You guys can help us with that.
No, it's Representative Zimmerman is the Assembly lead author of the bill, and Senator Quinn is the Senate lead author of the bill.
Okay.
But I don't believe it's actually been assigned a bill number yet, because it's going to committee this week, and when it goes to there, then it gets the official bill number.
Okay.
And just so it's clear, the Committee on State Affairs will be hearing this bill this week, and we are hoping to have it prepared for floor action next week. But one of the questions that was brought up is kind of what generated this entire bill. We received input from communities, residents, local officials, as well as Republicans and Democrats, as to things that they want to see to ensure that we're protecting people, protecting the land, protecting the community at large. And so that's how this was all generated. So the concerns that have been generated, we don't want to pay higher rates as a result of data center. That's in this bill. We want to make sure that water is not negatively impacted. That's in this bill. We want to make sure that the energy that's generated, especially through renewables, is locally sourced. That's in this bill. Making sure that if a data center ends up going away, that these thousands of acres are returned back to their normal state. That's in this bill. So every one of those elements are included. As it relates to transparency, more information, my goodness, all of us here support as much transparency as absolutely possible. But again, these are local decisions. Whether you're putting in a data center or a Walmart, you have to go through a certain amount of necessary and also just kind of required transparency. And so we encourage communities to do more of that. And certainly some maybe haven't met that level, but that's up to the local community to decide and to make sure that is occurring. So we absolutely support as much transparency as possible on this, but that again is part of the responsibility of being a local leader. Mm-hmm. And so we put that onus back on them. They are equally elected to us. They are not subordinate to us. And so we encourage them to do the right thing in ensuring the transparency that's necessary for this type of project, especially when you take into consideration the scale and impact.
Can you tell us what kind of feeling it is to see a lot of these projects showing up in Northeast Wisconsin, really across the state right now? There's probably a level of excitement, also concern too. What's that like?
Why don't you talk about Greenleaf, you represent that area, what do you?
I'm sorry, can you say the question
Yeah,
again?
you bet. What kind of feeling is it right now to know that a lot of these projects are starting to, I guess, become attracted to Northeast Wisconsin,
Yeah.
really across the state? There's probably a level of excitement and concern too. What's that like for you as a lawmaker?
Oh, when an issue arises like this that could be transformative, there's always individuals who are very excited about the prospect, and there's always individuals who are very hesitant about the prospect. I do believe that we are on the cusp of our economy changing significantly as it relates to data. Everything is becoming significantly more integrated. Even things as far as we talk about, one of the important parts of this bill is, protecting farmland. Well, even farms are becoming a lot more technological than they used to be. We're not talking about mom and pop kettle going out and with a bucket and filling a bucket with milk. These are becoming high technology systems, right? And so even from a national security standpoint, I have never been a huge fan of data centers in general. It's just where I personally am at. Nevertheless, from a national security standpoint, do we want America running the world's data, or do we want China running the world's data? And as it relates to that, if you're making a choice there, well, I'd rather have America doing it as responsibly as possible, as environmentally friendly as possible, and ultimately for national security that we got to do this. So yes, Wisconsin does seem to be a place that seems to be fairly attractive to data centers. Part of why I think that we're looking at northeastern Wisconsin, or why data centers are looking at northeastern Wisconsin, is I do think that Wisconsin has been looking at being friendly, for instance, to something such as additional nuclear power. We were talking about that a little bit before the press conference. I personally believe that we will see additional nuclear power generation in Wisconsin over the next decade. I know that there is discussions already taking place about putting in a new reactor at the old Kewanee nuclear power site. Having that type of power available at low cost for everybody, including data centers, but including all the individual ratepayers, having that power source available, being in a colder climate, these things create a lot of heat. So in addition to obviously cooling with the water, the fact that we are in a colder climate than, say, Texas makes us more attractive in that instance. We're not too far from very large industrial hubs such as Chicago and Milwaukee. So being relatively close to that it makes us attractive. So we understand why we're attractive to them, but if we're going to move forward with this, we need to make sure that the people of Wisconsin are protected in their electrical bills, that they're not paying extra money. We want to make sure that our environment is protected, and then we want to make sure that if a project doesn't move forward, that our land is protected. So, there's going to be growing pains as we consider all of this, but I am confident that when all is said and done, we will have progress here in Wisconsin that the vast majority of people can agree with, and I really hope that we will get Democratic support on this to be responsible about our data centers and not just letting them do whatever, because otherwise right now it does fall to the locals to make the decision, but we really want to have a lot more protections in place before these data centers go in to try to address the concerns that our constituents have raised.
So listen, as it relates to concerns that have been communicated by some of the public, new is scary.
Yeah.
Big is scary, and that's why we're doing this bill. There are horror stories of some of these hyperscale data centers from years ago in other parts of the state or other parts of the nation, other parts of the world, and we're trying to address that on the front end, make sure that those concerns that have been communicated by the public, by things that have happened in other states, this is the time to do it. How about we do it before we actually have one of these places up and running here in Wisconsin? It's a heck of a lot easier for us as a legislature and us as a state to put in these protections on the front end than after they're actually running. So we think we hit the mark on the primary issues and concerns that have been communicated prior to any of these actually going online. And so we're hopeful that the public will say this is a good, this hits our primary issues, our concerns. And so we're looking forward to this. We're hopeful we'll get bipartisan support and support from the governor. Again, this is all about protecting our communities, our water, and addressing many of those key concerns have been communicated by the people.
Thank you. Thank you.
How soon are we looking to hopefully get all this passed and approved?
Passed by the Assembly hopefully next week.
Next week,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know about the Senate, that's
Senate,
Assembly.
Senate tends to go a little slower in the Senate, only because they have the same number of bills, but 1/3 the number of elected officials to process them. Our legislative session will end at the end of next month, and the Senate will be, and the Senate's will conclude in March. So they have a little more time. So we do have a certain amount of runway to get this done, but we're certainly hopeful to have it to the governor in finalized form by the end of March.
Months or so, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you.
Thank you all.
All right.
Representative Stefan?